adapting things for an American audience because it's proven itself somewhere else, so it's less likely to fail because they know they have an audience that received it well. They're willing to roll the dice on an American audience receiving it well.
Do you consider today's film and television writers to be lazy?
I don't think so at all. May I ask you, is there a motivation for that question?
Oh, absolutely. Everything I ask, there's
Well,
motivation. Hopefully it's the good intention, but in terms of repeating content. So if the content is kind of recycled and they know, like you said earlier, this movie works and it made this much at the box office, let's do another version of it.
Well, it's not the writer that's being lazy. It's whoever is commissioning that work that is saying, we want to knock off this, or we want to revisit this property, and here's what we want it to look like, which is the thing that happens a lot now, is every executive imagines themselves as a creative at some point. Like, I work on reality shows where sometimes I'll get a note back where it's like, oh, could they be like this? Or did she say anything like this incredibly specific thing? Like, if she didn't, let's go pick it up and let's get it. And it's like, why? And they're always afraid of the dumbest person on earth watching the show and not understanding what's happening. Like, we're not really sure people are going to be able to follow this. And I always say, like, were you able to follow it? And they're like, oh yeah, no, we totally got it. We're just worried that some people might not remember that this happened 3 minutes before. So I've never watched a movie that resets the plot every 10 minutes because it's so sure that people can't remember something that happened in Act 1. Whereas in reality nonfiction television, it's all about, like, did you forget this happened before we went to commercial? Let's play it again. Let's do a flashback. Let's do that. Like, they're very worried about attention spans in television in a way that they aren't in film. So it's not that the writers are lazy, recycling content or writing in a manner that suggests that they don't trust you as the viewer to be able to facilitate your own experience. It's not the writers.
So it's executives that see this works, this doesn't, and it's
right. And it's ultimately, they're able to look at it objectively from the point of it being product as opposed to something that's super, that's super personal to them. I might have told you this story last time. I don't want to recycle it. I don't want to be perceived as lazy.
It was 2014. That's okay. The world's changed.
I know,
it's totally different now.
People don't always remember that far back. That's a little further back than Act 1. There was a writer who had been working on a sitcom, and they had rewritten everything that this person had contributed all the way through this particular episode. And it got to the end and they were going to take out a joke about waffles. And the joke about waffles was the bridge too far for this person. And they were just like, not the waffles are staying. And it's like, what a hill to die on. It's like, my one joke, this last joke that I have in there that's mine and you're going to take it out. I got news for you. Your checks are going to clear whether every word gets in or not. So enjoy the experience of writing and knowing that you're on something that's big, that's getting made, that people are watching. But don't take it so personally.
Why does it feel we're fed nothing but recycled content?
I think it's that thing I was talking about earlier, where it's just people in a business know a formula that has worked previously. They buy a lot of concepts from overseas, a show that has proven itself in Korea or Denmark or someplace else, or Israel. Boy, we got a lot of stuff from Israel. Adapting things for an American audience because it's proven itself somewhere else, so it's less likely to fail because they know they have an audience that received it well. They're willing to roll the dice on an American audience receiving it well. It is, in the end, a business that must remain profitable for all of us to continue to do what it is we do. So taking some of what they perceive as the guesswork out of it by copying a format or adapting this or that or trying to make it as much like this other successful thing as possible. It's just part of what we do. And there are very creative ways to work inside of that box that we sometimes get trapped in. I mean, there's still a lot of originality in a lot of adaptation. Like The American Office, when you watch that and you watch the original that Ricky Gervais was doing overseas, they're very much the same, but they are all very much their own thing. And that's why that show works.
Different humor styles, correct?
Mostly different.
Right.
I mean, there's some similarities in that a lot of the devices are repeated. That sort of faux documentary style, which I still can't invest in.
Oh, you don't like it?
When I watched The Office originally, and it was the American version, I had just done a film with Jenna Fisher called Lolly Love. And I just thought she was the greatest thing since they started making sliced bread. She was really funny and in a super subdued way. And it was this thing where I started to watch it and I thought, why would a camera crew be following an ordinary office around in that super contained environment where they can't go big, they can't have anything huge happen to anybody? And that turned into what was the most charming part of the show, was that it was small, and you get the idea that Steve Carell is performing for an audience of whoever the camera operators are. Like, you start to realize, like, that device, as restrictive as it is, opens an entire new world for people to play in. And it was great for him. So.
And also it embellished the office personalities, that if you've worked a 9 to 5 and you're watching this sort of mundane world happen, but within it, each one had its own role.
Yeah.
And so if Pam had more stuff dumped on her desk and she had to just kind of grin and bear it, and just the different politics that happened, but they were times 10.
Right.
I think it was enjoyable in that sense.
Yeah, and I like watching people make small worlds bigger. It's like they're just going to push on the walls until they blow out.
Can you talk about your role as a story producer and how that role has changed over the years?
Sure. The story producer, what we do, depending on, I mean, I've had a very post-centric career. I don't spend a lot of time in the field producing. I'm mostly trying to figure out how to take what comes back from the field and rearrange it into a show. Story producing has changed a lot in that when I started, back in the days of the Osbournes, where I was hired as a story producer and was then told, I don't hire people I don't know, by the person who was running the story staff. I became a dailies coordinator, which is a title I have never seen given to anyone else on a show ever. The Osbournes, when that show was originally done years and years ago, they shot for months and then went through the footage in a very genuine process where it was just about collapsing time and finding the stuff that was funny. And now everything is so rushed that you're almost on rails. It's like, we're going to go out there and we're going to get this beat, this beat, this beat, and this beat. Where it's not totally scripted, but it's like, we need you to have a conversation about this. That conversation happens, and then hopefully it falls into what you're hoping to be able to get back from the field. So you can cut it very quickly, get a rough cut out in 2 weeks as opposed to 8. The compression of time in actual production is kind of amazing. Like, I've done shows now where I've done, a 6 or 8 episode season, and I've cut it all in a month and a half. Like, it's just become, it's a total race to the finish. You don't get necessarily the same quality of product at the end that you might have in the beginning when you had enough time to really sift. Because this fallacy that you can shoot something and then review it all in real time and then start to edit. Is there a lot of people like, well, we need you to watch everything. Like, did you see the part where they did this? And it's like, that thing that's not in the notes, but that you saw in the field and spontaneously remembered? No, I didn't review that because I didn't know it happened. So you don't have enough time to really comb through things and find, you're not panning for gold like we used to be able to do because there's no time to do that. You have to edit very quickly. You take the biggest, noisiest chunks that you can find. It's changed a lot. And I think that on the network side, because things, as a byproduct of things being so compressed, the notes that you're getting are always about stakes and noise and how do we make this bigger than it is. We used to get a lot of notes on stakes, like, we don't understand what's so urgent here. How can we do? And the fix for that back then was you would get some music clip that sounded like pirates are coming over the wall, and you start playing that over a guy pouring coffee. You know something terrible is going to happen to him in about 30 seconds because that weird, ominous music is going to happen. So Linda's going to show up at the office and yell at everybody. That now would be like, have Linda go in and set everybody straight about the meeting that happened last week that they didn't invite her to. Like that's the beat we want. Get that beat. And then that's what comes back from the field in the first place. And it feels very tailored. And we talk a lot about the hand of the producer. A lot of the hand of the producer is in response to the hand of the network executive who wants this beat, and this beat to happen. And again, it's not any better or any worse. It's just different than it once was.
If we looked at the road rules, the beats, how different would they be? How slow would it have been compared to today's hit show?
Well, a reality competition show has beats built in because your challenges are going to be X, Y, and Z. Your eliminations are going to be X, Y, and Z. I think one of the best examples of this ever is The Bachelor. It's like, you know, they're going to go out, they're going to have these dates, they're going to do these away dates, they're going to have the fantasy suite card or whatever it is they do. Everybody's getting a rose except for these 4 people who are going home. You hope that it's somebody you like on the show getting a rose, so you're invested, and they know after doing this for 30-something seasons that people are going to want to see these particular things happen. So they shoot to that. It's not like they ever had a spontaneous rose ceremony like, hey guys, we got 2 hours left. Let's just do a rose ceremony. Let's go out in the backyard and put up a jib and get rid of some people. Like, it doesn't happen. It's all very planned out. This day, this is going to happen. This day, this is going to happen. And it's a brilliant show. It makes me sad, but it's a brilliant show. So
Why does it make you sad?
it makes me sad. Like when I watch people get voted off, and I don't really talk about the behind the scenes on that show because I don't like to talk about The Bachelor. It's a very strange part of my history. But I can remember someone being voted off the show, and people get super invested in winning at some point. That it's not just about, I hope he picks me to stay. It's that the thing internally, like, I'm going to look like a failure if I get sent home. And then when that starts to be the driver and they get sent home, they just turn into a blubbering, snotty mess when they find out they're not going to stay. And it just made me feel bad.
Sure.
Like, I have a major empathy problem. Like, it's good TV. I know that crying equals ratings, which was actually on a plaque on a wall in an office that I worked in, not on The Bachelor, but at another production company. Crying equals ratings. I'm like, no. Like, I can enjoy a person and laugh and not need something terrible to happen to them for me to feel like I'm watching a reality show.
Excellent.
But The Bachelor, I just feel bad for people who don't get picked.
Sure.
We all have our real life experiences of when we didn't get picked. And
Oh,
it sucked.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been the runner-up in many, many relationships.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Oh no, this isn't supposed to be a sad thing. It's just
I feel like I'm like,
it's just for the
Jerry
benefit
Maguire?
of the interview. I'm just letting you into my personal process a little bit.
They swore they weren't going to cry. What was the interviewer on Jerry Maguire? Okay.
Yes.
Are we making content too fast?
Oh, sure, we're making content too fast. I think that people who work in the industry shouldn't have to work 100 hours a week to satisfy a made-up schedule where someone says, we'd like to spend 60% of what it would take to make this production. So let's just all work ourselves to death and never take a weekend day off. We're just going to power through this and get it done because it benefits no one. No one who's working in that industry most of the time is getting overtime. They're getting paid a flat salary for the week. And they're working into the weekends and over the weekends to satisfy these schedules that are that could be created with human beings in mind, but just aren't. You got to keep feeding the machine and get stuff out. It's part of the appeal of what I do with reality television is because it can be produced faster than almost anything else. But, in the 1920s, when you were making movies and you had an 8-day shoot, and they were like, oh, we have 8 whole days to do this, 44-minute feature or 80-minute feature. That was quick, but now it's a little stranger.